welcome everyone, Chief Minister, Ministers, our members, to another one of our fantastic Three Ministers events. I'd just like to thank the Chief and the Ministers for taking time out this morning. It's very busy at the moment. All of you as well for coming today. It's the combination of us both that makes this a good event. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Consta, for very generously sponsoring this event for us this morning, without whom it would definitely not be possible. I think this is actually a very timely event. It's been a busy few weeks for the economy and the political circle, with the economic reports making some waves in Tynwald, and the Minimum Wage Committee, I think for the first time I can remember, not being able to reach a decision. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss. I think I say this every time we have an event, but we're all here for the same reason, and it's to see that the economy for the island is able to grow. We in this room are literally the economy of the island. You know, without the people here who are running businesses, producing goods, services, selling things into the rest of the world, bringing that revenue back to the island, paying the wages, which then pays the taxes. None of that happens without everyone here. And without any of that, we're not going to succeed. So these events are really important to help us be able to talk to the politicians. They can listen to us, we can hear them, and we can have that open dialogue, and hopefully we can unlock some of that growth and that success that we need. So yeah, I think all remains for me is to hand over to Chief Minister, who's going to kick us off. Again, thank you everyone for your time this morning, and I hope you enjoy the event.
Well, good morning everybody. I stand in front of you today as we virtually reach the halfway point in this administration, and what I wanted to do this morning was set out the progress that we have made against the well-publicised vision that we have for the island, and give you an overview of the priorities that we have identified for the year ahead. The vision, of course, should I hope, be ingrained in your minds as it is in mine. 5,000 new jobs, a £10 billion economy, and a targeted population on the island of 100,000 people. What is worth re-emphasising, I think, are the commitments for this administration. By 2026, we will have filled 1,800 new jobs, welcomed 2,500 new residents, built 1,000 additional homes, improved health outcomes, delivered a new quality assurance scheme for education, redeveloped at least 2 key brownfield sites using private sector leverage, found an additional £75 million of government income, and delivered 20 megawatts of onshore renewable electricity. Now, these targets as part of the bigger economic strategy are ambitious, but they are achievable. And I believe the important point to make to you is that this government is putting in place the foundations for long-term success. We're not thinking about the short term. We have a long-term plan in place that will give us another 15 years of economic growth, plus it will make the island a better place to live and work, a better place for a more just society, and a better place for people from all walks of life to succeed, not just in business and industry, but in sports, the arts, and their daily lives. On your tables, you will have a copy of the economic strategy that you can download using the QR code, and this was the one that was presented to Tynwald earlier this week. And that's the report, that's the annual report that we are producing in terms of the progress that we are making. And from that report, you will get, I hope, a strong sense that we're on course to deliver our headline targets, and that in fact, despite the strong headwinds that we know we are facing, and indeed have faced, the positive growth indicators remain. The bottom line is that we are growing our residential base, we are growing our working population, we are delivering on our brownfield site commitments, and we're delivering on critical infrastructure requirements. That, of course, is the upside. And what I'd like you to bear in mind is that we are delivering despite COVID hangovers, the inflation spikes, global security concerns, energy uncertainty, public sector strikes, and next to nothing growth in the economy of our biggest trading partner. It's easy to forget that world events continue to impact on our small island nation, and even Houthi rebels can add time and cost to government and local business activity. Now, not going to put the unions into the same category, but we have successfully resolved years of industrial unrest with teaching and nursing unions, and we are actively looking at improving culture and workplace performance across the public sector. I do not for a minute want to claim that pay and conditions do not still remain a challenge for us, but we are currently far from the train strikes, junior doctors' strikes and working time actions by teaching unions that are bedeviling the UK performance and output. I make no apologies, however, that the absolute focus and priorities of this administration have sought to lie in creating the economic foundations needed to deliver on our vision and build an Ireland that is fit for the future. We have continually promoted and will continue to promote the Ireland as a secure, vibrant and successful place to live and work. However, we are now facing some internal headwinds that mean that government will need to tidy up some housekeeping in order to keep moving forward and maintaining momentum. Firstly, there is now an absolute requirement for fiscal discipline to be enforced across government and for departments to operate to budget. The Treasury Minister will, I am sure, be keen to give you an appraisal of the current positioning, but COVID, inflation and pay increases have all contributed significantly to an increased deficit that, if it continues to manifest, would cause reserves to run dangerously low. That means more than ever, departments will need to operate as efficiently and effectively as possible. It means that some delivery focus may have to change, and this is under full consideration as we consider the latest version of our Ireland plan. But we are determined that, secondly, we must remain committed to our economic strategy. The headline targets are not changing. All departments must remain focused on delivering these key numbers, and there remains a heavy emphasis for the Department for Enterprise to lead from the front. And I know Tim Johnson is keen to tell you how this is going to be continued and achieved. What the interaction between these two priorities that I've just outlined does mean, though, as we move into a period where the financial chequebook is being tightened, is that departments are going to have to prioritise their spending. This, as I know from experience, can result in some tough decisions within departments and often readjustments that have impacts directly on the public. This may cause some negativity, but it is absolutely in the national interest that we regain control of spending and protect our reserves for the future. Third, there is an absolute need to make progress on our renewable energy commitments and indeed the security of our energy supply for the future. It is an ever-changing picture as we gain more information, but also technology and other options are being put to us. Again, we have set clear targets for the on-island supply, as you are all now aware, but we need to develop out further policies in this area, as well as get more strategic clarity in terms of our offshore capabilities. There are a number of private sector businesses seeking to capitalise on renewable opportunities, but also matters around grid infrastructure and capacity need firmer policy and clarity. Fourthly, housing and health remain critical requirements. Relevant to this target is the significant actions and investment that this government has made into tackling the housing crisis. You will be aware, of course, that house building has continued apace over the last 2 years, and the economic report, if you do download it, records 723 new dwellings now across the island with valid planning approval to be developed in the immediate and near future. As well as this, we continue to unlock the potential of brownfield sites, not only those that are publicly owned through the Manx Development Corporation, but also incentivising developers to address privately owned sites through the Island Infrastructure Scheme. The scheme, an initiative supported by the Economic Strategy Board, has in principle supported 3 new developments comprising 93 new apartments and mixed-use facilities for commercial, retail and leisure use. These developments leverage substantial private sector investment of close to £50 million. As far as social housing is concerned, the Council of Ministers instructed the Department of Infrastructure to properly investigate the feasibility and benefits of a national housing association for the island to professionalise and expand how we provide social housing for people at every stage and improve the experience of tenants and those who want to get a foot on and move through the housing ladder, as well as a way to establish a way forward for meeting social policy goals for housing. I expect to report on progress on this matter later this year. In 2022, we committed to a number of reforms and actions to improve delivery, accountability and outcomes in the public sector. One of those reforms was to overhaul the role of the Chief Secretary in name and scope to Chief Executive Officer Isle of Man Government and redefine Chief Executive Officers of departments as Chief Officers, with the exception of the Cabinet Office, where the Accounting Officer became and is now the Chief Operating Officer. These important changes are a step in modernising the structure of senior leadership in the civil service, at the very top and between departments at an official level. I have no doubt that these moves will assist in embedding the principles of one government as set out in the Island Plan. In July last year, Tynwald agreed that it supports the appointments of non-executive directors to departments and asked us to publish, prior to making any appointments, a code of practice covering the appointments, rights and responsibilities of any non-executive directors of departments. This has been completed and is now embedded in the Government Code. I am pleased to note that positions are now being sought and filled in this respect across government, including the Major Projects Board, the Operations Performance Board, and at the Department of Infrastructure. Part of the purpose of having non-executive directors in these roles is to have valuable external challenge, perspective, experience and oversight over, for example, large capital projects, since of course we recognise handling of these matters must improve, and that is why we have taken these steps. On other matters, you may have noticed that we've been beset by travel problems and connectivity. I want to tell you that your government has worked hard to address these problems by recruiting and training more air traffic controllers, but also with careful handling of staffing matters during threats of potential industrial action. I would not be so bold to claim that these problems were at an end, but I can assure you we are looking at and treating connectivity with a high priority. We are, of course, not alone or isolated in these problems, but I accept they have a marked effect on a small nation such as ours. That is why we are also paying close attention to destination management, and I can inform you that we continue to use public money to subvent airline services, primarily to support business and industry. That, I am sure you would agree, is not ideal, but it is necessary, and we recognise this need in line with our economic strategy. We are, however, continuing to pay close attention to route numbers and figures. We do not want just to become a cash machine for airlines. Another matter of note, and one that received little public attention, but one that potentially has great impacts on the island and business, is our international relations. There are two significant matters of concern that are at the forefront of our thoughts: Moneyval and beneficial ownership. I suspect that both these matters are of greater interest to those of you in the financial sector than in other sectors, but unfortunately both matters may have impacts on our economy. We have, as many of you know, already passed the first Moneyval inspection in 2016, but we are facing a second inspection, and the criteria on which we are judged is being tightened. I won't bore you this morning with the detail, but successfully passing the Moneyval inspection means, of course, that we remain on the white lists as opposed to the grey lists, and therefore there should be no challenge to our core banking infrastructure. Our Moneyval team are working incredibly hard to make sure that we are compliant across the key criteria, and I know they have been liaising with industry. Beneficial ownership has been through a more intense negotiation over recent months. An EU court ruling last year, which stated that open registers infringed basic human rights to privacy, has thrown open registers into doubt, which has meant that we have come under significant pressure from UK ministers who are somewhat inclined to believe that we should stick with our original timetable. I have worked closely with colleagues in Jersey and Guernsey to reject that position and confirm our intent to respect the EU court ruling. Nevertheless, this potentially remains a fraught discussion, but one in which I am determined to fight our corner. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over in a few minutes to Alex Allenson and then Tim Johnston to give you the good news. But I wanted to finish leaving you with three messages. Firstly, this midterm period of any government can be tough. Indeed, it is tough, but we are making progress. We have a vision and a plan, and the major headline targets are on track to being met. Secondly, While outwardly the vision and the priorities remain, we are also quietly getting on with reshaping the government internally to make it fit for the future. Some of that will take time to take effect, but proven leaders on key government departments and boards will eventually start to make a difference to performance in culture and outcomes. Thirdly, while at times it may seem troubled locally, this island nation remains a safe, secure and successful place in the nation to do business. Of course, that successful element in particular is because of the hard work and determination exemplified by you and your businesses. I know at times the relationship between government and the private sector can be fraught, but this government and this Council of Ministers are on your side, and I know that this year is going to see some very real and tangible progress towards a secure, vibrant and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chief Minister. I'd like to thank the Chamber for organising this function and also obviously the sponsors, but also just take a time out to thank the staff for what was a really delicious breakfast. I'd like to thank the Chief Minister for his introduction to this morning's event. Earlier this week, Tim Ward received the first annual report on the progress of the economic strategy. You've got a summary of that in front of you. And I think this shows significant initial success and a forward momentum which will take us through the next decade to ensure that our vibrant and diversified local economy prospers, not just for the benefit of various business sectors based here, or thinking to relocate here, but also for the benefit of every member of our community, whether they were born here or if they've recently joined us. Over the last 4 years, we've weathered many storms, and I think the Chief Minister's commented on that. We had the COVID pandemic, wars in Europe and the Middle East, a volatile world economy with financial crises and shocks, and inflationary pressures, both here at home, that have caused concern and anxiety throughout our community. But we're no longer bystanders to fate. Government have continued to act quickly and decisively to protect our nation, resulting in us in an increasingly strong and diverse economy, which has shown impressive resilience and adaptability. Despite the significant pressures on government finances, this year's budget will see us continue to deliver our Ireland plan, with significant investment in education, health and social care and frontline services, which act very much as the foundation for our society. We're now witnessing real investment in climate change mitigation as we join all developed nations in a common cause to tackle global warming, whilst also increasing energy security and grid reliability. We've used the Economic Strategy Fund to leverage private investment both to develop urban brownfield sites left vacant for decades, but also to encourage business expansion and new innovative startups. This and the Built Environment Reform Programme have significantly accelerated home building in our island to ensure that accessible and suitable accommodation becomes available for all. The report before you contains a few of the many practical examples of the range of initiatives underway, from the mainstream promotion of InsurTech to new and expanded mountain bike trials, which make a positive contribution to our community, our business sector, and those enticed to join us in the Isle of Man to become part of our success story. But we must also constantly scan the horizon for threats and for opportunities. Our financial sector remains the most important contributor to the income which drives our economy, government spending and consumer confidence. Investing in anti-money laundering expertise, preparation for the next Moneyval inspection, clear actions to prevent and prosecute financial crime, and protecting both our nation's credit rating and international reputation ensure we maintain the right environment for further economic growth and wealth creation. Growing our active working population through increased training and skills, augmented with attracting inward migration and making the island more family friendly, will form the foundations for the next generation. And ensuring that our retail and hospitality sectors have access to the right skilled workers is also a key part of our island's vibrancy. But maintaining the island's safety and security whilst cherishing our heritage, culture and biosphere status are also vital to protecting our unique and invaluable way of life. As we move into the second year of implementing the economic strategy, we need to build on last year's success, but also listen to the needs of our people and business sectors. Reliable and accessible transport links are key to an island economy, especially one with such a vibrant global outlook. will continue to support and enhance air and sea routes so that all people living here can also feel part of the global community, which has always been the Manx way. But this morning is all about listening and learning from each other. I look forward to the questions you may have. We'll probably have most of the answers, but key to this government is the long-term strategy to support you, your businesses and our island. I'd now like to hand over to Tim Johnson, Minister for Enterprise.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here with the good news. I think a few jokes I was told to say and sit down, so that is the plan, apparently. Good morning, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to address you all this morning. Our shared objective is to foster an environment which enables growth and prosperity, and Chamber plays a pivotal role working hand in hand with government, offering industry feedback and insight on prevailing issues, and importantly, on opportunities as well. The 2023 Economic Strategy Annual Report has been referenced by both the Chief Minister and Treasury Minister this morning, and I would encourage you all to take a moment to read this document if you haven't already. The figures demonstrate progress across our economy, and I would like to take a moment to highlight some of the key figures which the Department for Enterprise uses as key measures. Firstly, the number of jobs in the economy and the economically active population have long been indicators for the Department for Enterprise. The report shows a substantial increase of 1,500 jobs within our economy, alongside a 2% increase in overall people employed, equivalent to a growth of 700 additional individuals contributing to the Manx economic landscape. Whilst jobs in isolation doesn't necessarily mean more economic activity, as it could be a combination of full and part-time positions, the growth in the overall number of economically active people is a really positive measure, and we can clearly see ongoing inbound movement of people and business. Okay. From the perspective of the department, the report published towards the end of last year highlights that the executive agencies were tracked an increase of 335 net new jobs. However, over the final quarter of the year, we've seen that figure increase to 588, in line with the initial target to see 600 new jobs created and filled. This figure has been driven by many of you here in the room today and straddles the collective work of the 4 agencies, complemented by Locate Isle of Man, actively promoting the island as a place to live, and through increased efforts in the likes of attracting business migrants, with 48 applications for 2023. The department has further facilitated growth through our enterprise support business support schemes, with 126 jobs supported by 2023, and 150 people trained through the micro business grant scheme. In our pursuit of economic growth and stability, we understand the importance of looking after what we have, and the department is equally focused on ensuring our existing sectors and businesses remain vibrant and sustainable. I do appreciate there are real challenges out there for many businesses, and we must continue to do all we can to support our existing economy in remaining viable and vibrant. A large part of this is ensuring the island has the right infrastructure and the services to attract and retain our economically active people. Through the Island Infrastructure Scheme, a key initiative highlighted in the report, we have approved funding in principle for 3 separate projects that will revitalise unused brownfield sites across the island for 93 apartments and mixed-use facilities. These developments leverage substantial private sector investment of close to £50 million, moving us towards our long-term target of generating £1 billion of private sector investment through initiatives supported by the Economic Strategy Board. Alongside this, in 2023, the Business Agency received consultee status on planning applications for economic activity, and so far it's provided planning support at 18 applications. That, when fully realised, we will see 800 new homes and 100 commercial units developed in the coming years, thereby supporting 300 jobs. This is mainly private sector investment, and it's really encouraging to see coming forward. Before looking ahead, I would like to highlight a number of key metrics we've seen over the last year. Firstly, an increase in e-gaming licences, now at 84 and showing continuous steady growth in this established sector. The TT digital broadcast strategy has grown from strength to strength, with official social media channels growing by more than 276% since 2022, with a total audience of more than 1.1 million, increasing the access and promotion of the TT worldwide, and importantly generating vital income for the island. The first FinTech Innovation Challenge garnered significant attention from around the world, with over 80 applications from 20 countries, and the island was promoted as a prominent jurisdiction where innovation is encouraged. Visit Isle of Man have reported over 300,000 visitors to the island and recovered almost to pre-pandemic numbers, better than other places across the UK and other Crown dependencies. Locate hosted the third graduate fair, attracting over 300 young individuals to meet with over 60 local businesses and discuss the opportunities available in the island, resulting also in real offers made on the day to secure young people. We acknowledge that access to the right skilled workers and upskilling opportunities is imperative to our ambitions in relation to targeted growth and remains a real concern for many of you and across our whole economy. Over the last year, the Department has been working closely with the Department for Education, Treasury, the Chamber of Commerce and industry representatives to form a skills board to fully understand the skills requirements across the island and align our priorities around delivering inward migration, retention of residents and upskilling for the future. On this topic, Locate Isle of Man continues to deliver international skills-based campaigns to promote opportunities available across our sectors and drive individuals to the Locate Talent portal, which has seen over 12,500 registrations in total, supported by over 250 businesses actively enrolled. Locate will be launching targeted marketing campaigns throughout 2024, starting this month with engineering and financial services, which will aim to showcase the diverse opportunities across the island to an international audience. Looking forward, the agencies have recently all published their annual plans for 2024, outlining initiatives aligned with the Island Plan and Economic Strategy to support our sectors and drive economic growth. These plans, as with all the actions and decisions, have been forged by industry through the agency model, all included Chamber representation. To name a few initiatives planned for 2024, the Finance Agency now have a dedicated on-the-ground resource in post in South Africa, building on the strong connections from the Indaba trips and continuing to promote our offerings internationally. They will also be striving to maintain the island's international reputation as a leading financial centre while looking at ways to capitalise on the opportunities presented by sustainable finance. Digital Isle of Man will be exploring the data and knowledge industries alongside considering an AI position for the Isle of Man. They will also seek to protect, develop and grow existing digital sectors across fintech, e-gaming and esports. And on e-gaming alone, the forward pipeline is substantial. The Business Agency will be looking to bring forward two key strategies focusing on the local economy and engineering and manufacturing, both of which are data-driven, industry-orientated pieces of work that have been developed with a view to drive economic growth. Visit Isle of Man will continue to deliver their 10-year visitor economy strategy, and plan to achieve 330,000 visitors, exceeding pre-pandemic levels and providing much-needed spend power into the island. Building upon successful fintech and insurtech challenges, the Digital Business and Finance Agencies launched the 2024 Innovation Challenge uniting three major themes: clean tech, fintech and AI, under the banner of our unique biosphere status. These challenges help position the Isle of Man as a front runner for innovation and invites businesses from around the world to create leading edge products that will benefit the island. We are already seeing the economic benefits come to fruition, and 9 businesses in the process of relocating following the InsurTech Challenge, and 3 businesses following FinTech Challenge. The successful implementation of these initiatives necessitates close coordination and collaboration, not only with government but with industry representatives, such as yourselves here today. The economic destiny of the island hinges on our collective actions, Together, I believe we have the power to shape it into a diverse, vibrant and sustainable future. Thank you for your engagement and feedback. Thank you for your cooperation. And thank you all for what you do to help sustain and grow our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Now we get to the fun part of the day. I'll kick off with a question. We've got the Slido open. Everyone wants to log in on their phones. The code is just 3min. We'll be able to see the questions. I can ask them live. We've got 2 mics as well. We'll take questions from the room, but I'll kick off with one first. We've heard a lot about lots of plans today, various plans of different departments, agencies. As the chief will know, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So what do each of you think the probably 1 or 2 biggest challenges to those plans is going to be over the next sort of 12, 18, 24 months?
Well, I guess obviously, I've outlined in my remarks how we need to, first of all, address perhaps or refocus the way that government is spending its money, and there's been a number of issues there. So strong financial discipline is absolutely imperative now, because we need to make sure we've got that asset base into the future, both to protect ourselves from any future unforeseen event. Pandemic obviously springs to mind, but there are growing global security threats now, and we should not take global events lightly. We've learned that lesson, and we've seen impacts from Ukraine a couple of years ago in terms of that energy pricing. So that's first of all. So we need to make sure we've retained that asset and we've got a good strong financial base. And then secondly, I think we need to make sure that our priorities are focused in the right place. There are pressures when you pursue an ambitious program that we are pursuing. It means more people coming to the island. That means more businesses. Obviously that requires more investment, but it needs a strong program of house building and infrastructure behind it as well. We know there are issues in terms of some areas of public service delivery. A lot of that's driven by resource availability, but again, inflationary and economic pressures are having a role in that. So actually, they're the critical challenges that if we lost sight of that or failed to deliver on either of those two critical areas, either that infrastructure or that financial base, then I think we would pose a risk to our economic plans and probably cause some kickback, or definite kickback into the private sector.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think the key is stability. So we've got fiscal stability, which is partly down to government and down to Treasury, to make sure that we are as efficient as possible in terms of spending taxpayers' money, and put it in the right directions, but also keep an eye on our income and expenditure overall. We've got that financial and economic stability for the island, because what government should be doing is creating the right environment for business to flourish and work creation. And so we need that stability there to give business confidence, but also consumer confidence in what is an uncertain world with a huge amount of negative media all the time. And each week there seems to be another crisis, and we've got to try to maintain that confidence. But also we need political stability. One of the hallmarks of the Isle of Man has always been that ability to have more of a long-term outlook rather than very short-termism that we're increasingly seeing, particularly across Europe and particularly in America as well. So we need our political system to be aligned with actually delivering for the people of our island.
Yeah, and I think then, creating that environment is the key. Then on a practical basis for the Department for Enterprise is actually how then we help business move forward in that space, and that's the key. And I think ultimately, and we were talking about it yesterday when we had with the Chamber of Commerce our lunchtime discussions, nothing's changed in the sense that we recognise I think we all recognise what the challenges are. They haven't gone away. Things are happening outside our control globally, but that doesn't change the issues we have, and we still have to address them. So as far as the department's concerned, we've talked about connectivity and the importance of all the areas we need to work in that area, very much so. And certainly as DFE going much more involved going forward with strategy in that area, I think that's really important. Skills we recognise are a really, really big problem. We know we've got record low unemployment. And this is positive in many ways, but it also creates challenges as well. We've got high, we haven't got many, we've got a lot of vacancies, low unemployment. Working with Chamber in the Skills Board, that's a real priority for us this year. These are the things, what are the things that are stopping business being able to go forward? There's lots of things outside our control, but there are things we can help with, and I think that's what's really important.
Very good, thank you. The questions have come in thick and fast on Slido. There's one here, picks up on a point that you mentioned, Minister Allison. Do the ministers think the way politicians are selected by very small regional constituencies versus national elections hampers our political focus on national issues? Who wants to take that one?
I think that debate's an interesting one. Look, I'm not going to go into whether or not I think we're getting the right people through, but I think what is important is that we do maintain a focus on the high level, and I think you can. I appreciate. I don't want to get too sucked into sort of recent events either, but because it's not necessarily a good example. But sometimes if you're looking inward too much and get yourself bogged down, without maintaining that broader focus of the direction of travel, then I think it can cause problems. And I'm pretty sure that the way that this economic strategy is being crystallised, that we're trying to take the best of the opportunities post a pretty traumatic COVID period is the right thing to do, and that's what we've got to keep going and keep focusing on. And there's a lot of pressure on politicians, and there's a lot of pressure on we talk about the business side, and we're focused on business industry today, and we're talking about growth and things, but within that there's a very human side as well, and political members get very, very exposed to all the real problems, the downsides, if you like, of growth and dealing with people who are really struggling, and social issues in some areas and things. And so sometimes it's you lose perhaps. It's difficult for everybody to remain focused on the big picture, but it is important that we do so, and I think we've got the right strategy to get behind, and I'm pretty sure that despite some recent comments, everybody is focused on, and the majority are supportive of delivering in that area.
Yeah, I don't think today is the day to start talking about the nuances of electoral reform. I mean, what we have on the Isle of Man, and consistently is the, I suppose, the will of the Manx public when they're asked to vote in elections. They tend to go for independents who they know and they trust and they recognise. Our job as politicians is very, very local, but also national and international as well. And that's the same wherever you go. I was watching a TV interview with Stephen Kinnock outside the Port Talbot Steelworks, which is in his constituency, talking about both his constituents being laid off, but also the future of the steel industry on a national and international level. So it is very, very much the same. I think what we need to do, though, is as I said in my address, try to get away from some of the short-termism. We shouldn't get bogged down with what's happening in a particular part of the country today. Yes, it is important, yes, we do need to deal with it, but that should not divert us from the long-term aspirations for the island and the island economy, because it would be very, very easy to be consumed with the crisis of this week without looking for the opportunities of next month and next year.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I think important to make sure we distinguish between perception and reality. Actually, I think there's some of that at the moment going on. Actually, if you actually look at the track record of Alban government over many years, and you talked about the importance of stability, not having party politics, having that ability. That what does business want? Surely is stability and security and be able to look ahead, and that's what government is trying to do with the plan. Is having that 10 or 15-year plan to put that security back in. So I think that's really important. And I also don't think you would really appreciate it if we had this massively inward conversation about changing the way we do things constitutionally. When's the best time to do that? At the moment, when I think all the pressure, I really don't think that we'll be thankful for that. That's a big question, but it's not for now.
Well, the other thing I'd say, coming up on the Chief Minister's comments, accessibility to politicians is a two-edged sword. it does put a lot of stress on us as individuals, but also means we're at events like this, we have very much an open door policy, and I'd like to think that those of you who've approached government and saying, look, I've got an investor, I need to meet with the minister to discuss things, the door is always open. And I think that's one of the benefits of the system we have at the moment.
Yeah, good. I think we'll go to the room for a question. Some hands up, and we'll bring the microphone to you. Has everyone done it all anonymously online?
We've got a question here.
Hi, good morning. Graham Sullivan from Barclays. Just have a question related to the immigration. Obviously, we have our ambition around the aspiration of 100,000 economically active individuals, etc. Just wondering, was there any news on the status of the work permit review, perhaps as a facilitator towards that?
Yes, so as you say, we were looking to bring forward changes, plans to temporarily suspend work permits and bring in a registration system. I think that hit a few headwinds politically. I think that, we discussed it, and I know we had a conversation with Chamber about that as well. And I think we recognise the importance of access to skills and the reasons why we wanted to make those changes. And I think business is very supportive in many ways of changes, but at the same time, I also know there are concerns as well. So I'm still very keen to bring forward in the spring some new proposals. But I've had to go away and listen and press that pause button for now. But the principles of having that one-stop shop registration process right across through, whether it's you coming into work, whether through immigration or whether you're coming from a common travel area, and having that data gathering process without adding more layers of bureaucracy and undoing what we're trying to achieve is what we're trying to do. And it's not easy, but that's definitely what we're working on. But I think we also recognise that immigration is becoming more of the challenge in many ways than the work permit system, but still having that cross registration thing is really important. And then the other thing is making sure we're working in lockstep with the broad challenges around border security as well. So whenever we decide within the Department for Enterprise and Work Permits, we're also working in lockstep with what's happening with immigration and immigration changes. But yes, still looking, we still recognise, the skills, access to skills is a really big issue. As you know, once you start going into immigration, you're hitting then into UK Home Office and the processes, and we're always looking at ways that we can try and improve that, and that's what we're working on and trying to resource more at the moment.
Yeah, if I can just say, I think the Ireland government has always tried to avoid some of the toxic rhetoric about immigration in general that we're seeing particularly in the UK and America at the moment. What we've also announced this week is bringing immigration to amalgamate it and join it with customs and excise. And there's a lot of overlap there in terms of enforcement, strengthening border security in terms of the overall safety of the Isle of Man, whether it's money laundering, whether it's drugs importation, but also by keeping that core immigration policy within central government, I think we can use that for the economic benefit as well, and look at how we can work with the UK government to free up, perhaps, or make it easier for people to relocate on the Isle of Man, but also give them the benefits of things like citizenship on the Isle of Man as well, for the long term. Because what we want to do is encourage people to come over and stay and actually prosper on the island. So I think by work permits is one side of it, but also it's part of the overall immigration package we can provide. And a lot of that from a small jurisdiction is to make things easier and clearer, both for people who want to employ and also employees who want to be based here. And hopefully with some of the measures we're taking, both in terms of simplifying the work permit system, streamlining that, but also looking at increasing the resources to the immigration service, we can actually achieve that.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to another question from online. Is the approach of the FSA in disengaging in collaborative support for financial services businesses and issuing punitive fines to demonstrate effectiveness really conducive to the Island Plan?
So, this is an issue. I'm aware of this in the background, and this really is also very directly related with Moneyval and the increasing scrutiny that is being put on us. Now, from a personal perspective, I'm a bit concerned at the direction that Moneyval is going in, because I'm very conscious of the fact that they're almost now effectively demanding evidence, hard evidence, that not only have we identified money laundering or financial crime, but that we have also taken punitive action against that. Now, absolutely, people guilty of financial crime or money laundering need action taken against them. But there is, I think, a nervousness that there's a fine balance in this area. But nevertheless, we still have to demonstrate absolutely that we are making absolutely every effort and put in place the process and procedures to evidence that the nation is on side and on track with the international demand. And absolutely, I think it's imperative that we build and continue to build our reputation for this area. And we know that we're under a lot of scrutiny. We know at the moment, of course, the island's name is being mentioned regularly in the press, and it is, as I said, it's difficult. But that is why I think that is the reason that there is this growing evidence of harder action. I think it's incumbent now on the FSA to carry on working and liaising effectively with business, to try and drive ourselves to the higher standards. But just to go back to my earlier point, what I find a little bit galling is when you sit in front of Moneyval, and I've had a discussion with the preliminary work that they've done, some of the preliminary the people who've been over it. And I said, well, actually, we're driving the higher standard. Where's the evidence that you've actually done that by arresting a few people and putting them in jail? Now that's it's difficult. Actually, no, we haven't done that because we are driving the highest standards forward. We have a very, very exceptional investment into financial crime. We've got a good, strong reporting structure, and we absolutely investigate very, very thoroughly when these events happen. It's really about the FSA having to work collectively, closely with business, and business also understanding that these demand pressures are being driven by Moneyval, and it's we've got to overcome that and continue to work forward. And I appreciate also that puts additional pressure on directors, but it also puts additional pressure on the staff numbers, etc. The infrastructure you need in your business to ensure that your compliance is at such a level. And so there's lots of knock-on impacts, but that's basically the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I slightly disagree with the idea that the FSA are disengaging from the financial sector. I think they are independent regulators. Their own status has to be maintained. They've done quite a lot of work in terms of information and education. And so, for instance, the project they did in terms of foreign PEPs last year and highlighting some of the problems there, onboarding those and the extra precautions you need to make for your own security and for your own reputation, I think are very, very important. But overall, it's looking at the international reputation of the Isle of Man as a good place and a safe place to do business, and make sure that we don't put any barriers in the way. And certainly blacklisting or grey listing could be and has been seen as a major barrier to those countries that have had to adapt to that, whether they be Gibraltar or Malta.
Good, thank you. We'll take another question from the Slido. What changes to tax policies do you expect to implement to help reduce the current deficit?
That's down to me, and I can't give any spoilers for the budget. I think we need to be realistic. The economic strategy talks about broadening out the tax base, because we do tax people here on the Isle of Man, and we need to make sure that any tax policies we have both bring in the right amount of income that then government can use to support and grow the local economy and provide key services, but also absolutely maintain our competitiveness, both in terms of recruitment of people to the island, but retaining people here on the island and making sure that there's that inward investment to retrain and expand what's going on here. I think when you look at lots of other jurisdictions, and only at the start of the week, there was some serious messages coming out of the bond market about the amount of domestic debt, both in the United Kingdom, but lots of other jurisdictions. We are being very, very careful in terms of our overall debt. We've had the audited accounts that have now been published for the last financial year. They show a very organised debt, mainly due to bank utilities and the bond issue we did a couple of years ago. But we're maintaining our reserves. We are drawing down on reserves, but in the short term, to balance an increase in government revenue and that financing of the economy. So this year's budget is going to be difficult. I no doubt it's not, some of the messages in there are not going to be particularly popular, but I think it's absolutely essential to give that long-term financial stability and also sustainability going forward, because what we can't do, as a lot of us have been saying, is constantly respond to today's problem without looking at the long-term finances of the island economy.
I think just following on from that one, we've got another one here. How much of a drain is the government final salary pension scheme on the income tax receipts, and is there a chance that the money may run out?
Again, this going back to the audited government accounts, they actually show the demand from revenue for financing the public sector pension scheme has plateaued out now, and actually the long-term the valuation of that has come down. We've got a cost sharing exercise going on at the moment, looking at the balance of that. So absolutely, I mean, it's a scheme that was set up historically, it's a scheme that has debts, but by making the changes that we made really in the last administration under the then Treasury Minister, it has balanced out that expenditure. So a lot of the projections of the liabilities going up and up and up, and the costs going up and up and up and up, have leveled off quite quickly actually. It is something we need to balance. We're talking about around about £40 million a year out of an annual budget of 1.2 billion and above, so it's manageable. And what that does is really look at the public sector and look at how we entice the best people to join the public sector, whilst also containing obviously the cost and the headcount of it. What we've been seeing increasingly, particularly from a Treasury perspective, is it's hard to get the staff, and we've had quite a few of our staff being poached by the private sector again, so it's come full circle. And obviously pensions is one of those aspects that the government can offer to entice people to join us, even if it's just for a while while they get their training up and then move on.
Good, thank you. Should we go back to the room for any questions? We'll carry on with the online. Everyone's very shy today, aren't they? No one's brave enough. There we go. Go on, Craig.
Good morning, it's Craig Wollstonecroft from MMC. You've laid out very well this morning your plans, and that's great to see. I suppose I'm going to reverse that and say, what would you, the ministers, like to see? What can private sector do to help government achieve its plans?
So, I mean, I think, Craig, I hope that the private sector can see the opportunities within the vision that we have outlined. I think, the growth plans that we put forward offer clear lines, I know, for certain sectors. So, for example, construction can see a very, very healthy, I hope, pipeline of activity. I believe that other areas within that, including the domestic economy, should be preparing for obviously the growth in people, which should mean more success for retail premises and vis-a-vis some of our hospitality premises, and of course the hotels. And of course we've aligned a lot of that as well within the Island Plan vision and detailed out where we expect to see some of that infrastructure growth. I think I'd like to hear back from business and industry where they feel things are going wrong. I do get feedback all the time that people get frustrated in terms of the interaction and the pace that government is working at when they're coming forward with plans. But I think hopefully business and industry are positive and believing that this offers opportunity for them. If they can see and recognise the direction of travel, they will understand that there will be opportunities for them to increase their business revenue and look for opportunities for growth within that. And I think in terms of what I would like to see is, I guess this is a combination of everybody. One, looking for those opportunities, but I think digitalisation particularly is a key area for us that I think as a nation we need to push further forward, particularly as a public sector we need to push further forward. And I think, Alex and Tim, we are very keen to hear of technology advances or opportunities that will enable us to be more tech savvy and more tech advanced. And actually, I think part of the answer to some of the public sector issues in terms of staff numbers and how we deal with growing numbers demanding health services, for example, does lie in technology. But of course, the pace of change is very slow. But of course, anything that comes in, I think we're very keen, Craig, to understand that and to try and work with the private sector, particularly in that area.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's partly working with the private sector and also learning from the private sector. So, Social Security, you've got a programme at the moment of digitalisation. So if you've got your sick note, you should be able to put that online and send it through rather than having to come up to Markwell House and give it. So, funny enough, we were talking to Barclays about their system of doing checks online. Well, it's the same sort of tech, it's the same security. Why do we want to reinvent something when we can use stuff from the private sector to upskill what we're doing? But also in terms of DFE, that there's some interesting developments. The King Gaming development on Victoria Road is they're looking at major headquarters, but they're also looking at accommodation for their staff. And so by working with the private sector, we can overcome some of these barriers to recruitment and retention, like housing, by actually getting a more complete package and driving that forward. So we can, if we can learn and perhaps feeding them through the agencies what the actual needs of individual companies are, because they will differ, whether it's skills, whether it's people, whether it's IT, there's developments in AI. If we can work together to actually provide those, I think we'll be in a much better situation.
Yeah, and I think, for example, likes of the Island Infrastructure Scheme and the ESB, and looking at government facilitating private investment and access and getting that involved, and locking what we need as an island, recognising the infrastructure we need going forward, and recognising the ability to leverage that through the private sector, and involving the private sector in that and encouraging is really important. I think government's got an important role in that, facilitating and being a partner in that. But from the Department of Enterprise point of view, I think the agencies are very much key to this, and as I said, the representation on all of the boards from like the Chamber and other business, and having that expertise coming in, your expertise coming into those boards, keeping government, which I think often is guilty of not looking up and looking out enough, and I think that's why it works well, having that relationship. So we are getting what the challenges are, seeing them, and having that longer term plan and vision with you to take things forward, and I think that's really important. And I've been really encouraged over the last 12 months. I think the agencies have really flourished, and I think we only set them up just before COVID, and they've really taken time to sort of find their wings, really, and I think they really are now. What I'm really encouraged about is the cross working that's going on across the agencies, and the innovation challenges. I think is a classic example this year with finance agency, business agency getting involved with clean tech, so with clean tech, AI, fintech. It's really good to see that happening, and of course, you guys all have a part to play in that, and I know, through the agencies, I think that's really positive.
Just following up on a couple of points there, it was around the digitisation, what you spoke about that. What's the overall strategy for bringing, I guess, a lot of the government processes, especially the public and corporate-facing ones, into a digital era? Where does that lie? Who's responsible for deploying that?
So I just want to pick up on that. I think Tim mentioned the boards. And I did in my opening remarks, I talked about how we were, actively trying to bring, and I mean, it's been talked about for a long time, the private sector into government by sitting on boards, right? And, I think trying to recognise the value that will bring, that third-party view in terms of what government's doing, and trying to bring a different view on the process and procedures being employed. So the Operations Performance Board, which we have just literally set up last year, and which was part of that response that we looked at in terms of the employment tribunal that's ongoing, the Ransom Employment Tribunal. But that's just been set up. We had, unbelievably, we normally only get 1 or 2 applicants. So when we go out for airport advisors, or when we go out for other boards or people to come and sit on appointments commissions and things like that, we only get 1 or 2. We had 36 applicants for the two positions that we've currently got on the Operations Performance Board. And the 2 people that we're going to announce imminently will be both very, very well known to you. So I'm really delighted in that appointment. But in that operating performance board, at the heart of what we put at the heart of that, sitting in the Cabinet Office, but human resources and digital particularly, which are both centralised functions. Now, how particular, I'll just focus on the digital side, but also applicable, I suppose, to HR. Now, the value of having this big centralised resource and what it means for being nimble for government departments and having that flexibility, I guess, to almost design themselves and to almost design the systems that are right for them and their customers and their clients and their stakeholders, perhaps may have been lacking. So it's going to be really interesting to see and get the view from, in this case, two very highly professionals, both of whom have technology backgrounds and digital backgrounds, as to what a very large organisation that is servicing multiple different departments needs to do, whether it should stay with a centralised system or actually whether there is a question mark around breaking that up and sending that out and allowing departments to be more nimble and flexible when it comes to applying technology. And of course, they may be able to bring about prioritisation in terms of some of the delivery in that aspect as well as a greater pace. So that's what we're doing about it. And I think there's much more room for greater understanding about what the government's digitalisation plans are.
I mean, the Cabinet Office produced the digital strategy, which has been updated and was updated last year. I think we've come a long way. So I now get my car tax online. That's easy. I deal with my son's tuition fees online, my tax returns online. More and more businesses using the online services as well. The next step really is looking at key areas. So we've got income tax and social security with big multi-year developments there, often involving island-based IT firms to upskill that. And then there's the wider piece in terms of gov.im and the website. It was interesting, we had the Estonian ambassador over and looking at what they've done in terms of really using digitalisation to improve services. And certainly in terms of social security, if everyone can do things online, then it frees up our staff to actually do the face-to-face work with getting people back into work who are on long-term sick leave. So we can turn around to produce not just more efficiency but better service by using digitalisation. But with some of the complex and sometimes historically complex systems, that does take time to make sure it's safe and effective when it's implemented.
Very good, thank you. We'll go back to the online questions. There's one very popular one here. Regrettably, we have seen an ever-growing number of hospitality businesses close, citing unsustainable rising costs. Is there any specific help proposed for this sector on the island?
Yeah, and it's always frustrating and sad to see businesses close. I think there's a danger to react to an individual situation. I think it's my job as Minister in the DfE is to take that slight step back and look at the bigger picture of what's happening across the local economy and hospitality. And yes, there are challenges, but we're also seeing, I think, a lot of new business coming in, new ideas and standards, high standards. And I think that's great to see in the sense that it helps. Like in any sector, we're seeing that challenge, and some people are sort of stepping up to that challenge and moving forward with new ideas, innovation, and I think some really exciting hospitality businesses on the island. We're seeing that at the moment. We're seeing growth, and recently there's talk of some new developments in Peel and in Ramsey, so that's really positive. But yes, it's always frustrating to see. I think we all recognise that hospitality was hit very hard through COVID. There was support there for that sector. But clearly in an open economy, we're not in a position to be able to directly interfere in the domestic economy with direct support. But what the department can do through the business agency is offer that free professional advice, access to consultancy. Because again, often these businesses, people are working very long hours, often on their own, often or as a small team, and they're not very good at looking up and looking out and seeing where we're going, what we're trying to achieve, and we can help in that process. That's very valuable, I think, and that's something that we're always willing to do. And as you know, at the moment we've recently launched our local economy strategy, and I think it's again looking at how our towns and our town centres and city centres are working, and how we can help forge and shape them for the future more sustainably.
Yeah, I think to be blunt, we've had 3 years where Isle of Man government have used reserves to pump in and support areas of the local economy, quite rightly so. What we can't have is that dependence on government financing. So I think more and more the work of the Department for Enterprise will be to help people with developing new business models, whether that's getting online, looking at logistics, looking at their premises, developing the skills that they need. I think wherever you go in the world, there are changes in terms of consumer behaviour. That the nightclub scene doesn't really exist across large parts of the UK anymore because of changes in the way people behave and the way they go out and want to enjoy themselves. But what we have seen on the Isle of Man is, although some businesses, particularly in the hospitality sector, have closed, sometimes that's for personal reasons, sometimes that's for financial reasons, we've also seen new businesses start up, perhaps with slightly different business models, looking to provide really high quality niche supplies and offerings for certain markets. And what we need to do is have that ability to share best practice, share new ideas, and I suppose that's where Chamber comes in as well, to see, right, who's doing well this week, why? Is it having special offers on Wednesday and getting more people in? And how can then government help publicise that, incentivise that to actually spread those opportunities out quite wide? But I think with reductions in people's disposable income, it is going to be an issue both in terms of retail and hospitality sector going forward. So that's why things like the visit strategy is so important, why connectivity is so important, so we can make sure that in those peak seasons we get the maximum spend here into the local economy.
I just want to stay on it slightly for a slightly different angle on it. I mean, I think those are talking very much about the direct interventions into those sectors, and I'm not a hospitality person, but I think it's probably fairly self-evident that the biggest costs in those sectors, and many sectors, is energy, which is government sort of controlled to some degree, transport, which is again government controlled, and wages, which is again under your purview. Do you think there's something on the other side, rather than direct intervention, rather than some of the underlying causes of that can be done there through some work there?
I mean, I think we do pretty well with our energy prices, and bear in mind, we're not directly controlling them in the sense that we've still got that base cost that is coming through for, in this case, gas is our primary source of the electricity provision. I think my take on this is, listen, I mean, it's a tough environment, okay? I mean, we accept that, and it's a tough environment, not just for the reasons that you've just spoken about, but because people's habits are also changing as well, and that's also down to perhaps a new generation who perhaps prefer to socialise in different ways, online mostly, but also because of the impacts of COVID and people just generally, perhaps often, I think, choosing to stay at home and socialise rather than necessarily go out. But the key thing is, this is one of the reasons why the economic strategy is so important, because I think there's increasing evidence generally that an island of 80,000, 85,000 just does not produce enough sustainability to get the core value that we need. And that's why putting people back into town, building up the brownfield sites, bringing more vibrancy to the town will give these businesses a better opportunity. Increasing the population to 100,000 will give us a better opportunity. Yes, it's going to cause some headaches, particularly more so for the public sector. It causes infrastructure headaches. But my view, and I believe that the supported view, is that this will give these businesses a greater opportunity to succeed. Now, we will still see businesses come and go, because that's a natural way of life. We will not necessarily be able to control all the quirks of the economy and the pressures and inflation, etc. But that's why we need to keep focused on the big picture. This is a really classic example, the big picture. If we drive that successful economy through to what we're targeting, then these businesses are going to have a greater chance to succeed. And yes, government does need to be mindful of what it is doing when it comes to setting costs and prices and the way that it is also controlling, if you like, or adding some value to the economy. But when it comes to pricing in terms of wages as well, we're also determined that a good, strong national society where people have the best opportunities because of the wages that they are getting is also a successful society and will be better for us in the longer term. But there is a very fine balance, and that's why the Minimum Wage Committee at the moment are struggling to determine what is the right direction for travel, and it's a big issue for us in government as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also push back on you a little bit, because in 2022 we were the first jurisdiction to bring in an electricity price freeze. Well ahead of the UK. That was direct government intervention to stop some of the massive increases that were affecting businesses in the UK. We did that. We intervened. As the Chief Minister has already said, we are currently intervening in terms of travel. A lot of that's the routes themselves rather than the price, because when we've asked the business sector what they need is to be able to get people here for day trips, get customers to come over, do trips to the UK, particularly to those major economic destinations, and that's what we put money into. In terms of wages, that is a stress for the hospitality sector. It's also a stress for those who pay relatively low wages. But in the same way as I'm challenged in terms of our competitiveness, in terms of taxation, we have to be competitive in terms of wages. We've got a major global skill shortage and labour shortage right across Europe. And so if we're going to attract those people to come and work on our island, they have to see the benefits of that in their pocket. And one of the things that's stopping some firms from expanding and actually promoting some firms to leave the island is that workforce pressure, above and beyond wage pressure. So I think it has to be seen in the round, and certainly I think we're very keen to work with the business community, but also work as a whole of the business community, rather than just take one particular section of that in terms of the minimum wage, because the reality is very few people are paid the minimum wage. What we need to do is actually market the Isle of Man as a great place to come and work and do business, and manage to twin the two.
And I think that, again, going back to that comment I made earlier about perception and reality is very important as well. And the Chief Minister has talked about our population and the importance of being able to service and say, we talk about the hospitality sector. We have a very high number of hospitality businesses for our population. That's always going to, therefore, going to be a challenge, and then we have to accept that. And some of the early work that's been done on the local economy strategy, and there's lots of figures to come out, and this is the first time a real proper deep dive audit getting done of our town and city centres. Again, what's clear is we have a very high number of shop units for our population. So you start saying, well, what does that mean? And actually, when we're talking about vibrancy and bringing vibrancy back into our city centres and town centres, does that mean we need to be looking at making changes so actually we're taking things out of retail, bringing them back into residential? So there's lots of issues there that we need to be looking at and are looking at.
Okay, thank you. We've got a hard stop at 10:30, I've been told, so we've got 6 minutes left. To go to the room, if anyone's got a quick burning question. We've got one online. We've got someone here. Bex, yeah.
Hello, my name is June Whiteman. I represent the South African Chamber of Commerce and a new relocation agency called IOM Relocate. Now, the Isle of Man is doing a really good job on advertising itself as a wonderful place to live. But when we come to immigration and the delays that we're experiencing with immigration and the length of time that it takes for the process, your new move to combine customs and excise with immigration, is that going to shorten that period and make it more efficient?
Well, can I just, so I don't know, June, is that, just out of interest, is that comment driven by a very recent experience, or is that just your longer term view on immigration?
Recent experience.
Yeah, so I happen to know, because I've looked into this yesterday, so our immigration processing times, I think, are running at about 56 days. right, the target is round about 29, 30 days, and what it is going back to that target. And the reason why the last 2 or 3 months have been at a very high blip is because we have had a very high increased workload through a couple of exceptional events that have caused the backlog. Well, I can reassure you, it is going back to its processing times, and it's around about 30 days, and it will be much quicker.
But in answer to your question, I mean, bringing everything together and having a coordinated team, I think will produce efficiencies. What I'm also then really keen on doing from a more high-level perspective is looking at things like performance indicators, so we can track them, and then if we do see them going off for any particular reason, we can correct that, whether that's increased resources or talking to the UK Home Office and trying to fast-track some of those people who've been waiting too long.
Very good. We've got one more quick one in the room then. I don't think any of the ones we've got online are quick ones, unfortunately. We might just, we'll maybe wrap it up there. I'd just like to say thank you then to Chief Ministers, thank you to all of you, our members, for coming here today. Thank you to Conister for sponsoring it, and yeah, it's been a good event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsten. And just a quick final point for me, because I appreciate everyone's got to go and sort of like, but you know, when you're pushing forward, when you're pursuing a growth strategy, right, there's always going to be tricky problems to overcome. You know, my message really is keep the faith. There is a load of opportunity globally for us in the island. I mean, it's a very difficult, challenging world out there, and the island offers investors and those in the commercial world real opportunity, I believe, at the moment, and also offers us all massive safety and security, because when you go out into the world, it's a very dangerous and uncertain place at the moment. You know, we're going to keep focused, and we're going to keep on track through the difficulties, and we're going to sort out some of the issues and the difficulties. And I have a very strong belief that some of the brownfield site delivery and some of the other delivery plans that we have for this year will see a successful year.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you all.